Well, hey, on today's episode, we're talking about ministry, marriage, and leading your family well. Come on, welcome to the show, Mait and Tiffany Hudson. Well, hey, I want to share with you something that I am really loving, and that is Runner's Fix coaching. If you're into running, maybe you're starting to get into running a little bit, or you've been running for a while and want to take it to the next level, can I suggest going to runnersfixcoaching.com. It's led by John Mott, who's been on our show before, but this is going to be a way for you to get some more detailed running and accountability to help you achieve those goals. Through things like constant feedback, a structured schedule, and expert knowledge, John Mott and his team are going to help you take the next level in your running game. So go to runnersfixcoaching.com. Again, that's runnersfixcoaching.com to check it out today. Awesome. Cool. Well, we're live. Tiffany and Mait, thanks for being with us on the show.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
It's going to be so fun.
I appreciate it, honestly. Yeah, I know for you guys both, this may be a little bit more of like going into like a chiller season, right? Post-Easter, post-tour, right? You guys just got recently back from tour. How was that?
Tour is amazing and crazy. We took our little son with us. And so tour with a baby is wild.
It's different.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to go as a family, which is a huge blessing. So I wouldn't call it like chill season, but definitely chiller now that Easter is over.
I don't know what a chill season is anymore, but
yeah, for sure.
There's a lot less stuff going on. That's for sure.
Well, both of you working at the church, there's like always something going on. There's always something like, okay, this is happening in the next month. So you're planning for the next thing.
Yeah. And now when there's not anything, then it's like, oh, I think we're about to have a chill season. Next thing you know, we get in a meeting and then it's the complete opposite.
Honestly, just having a baby, because even if it's like somewhat chill work-wise, it's like we still got to take care of a baby.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You got to take care of a full human. Yeah. How old is he now?
He's about to be a year.
Yeah. So, like 2 weeks.
Everybody told us it flies by, and I'm like, I know. But like, okay, you guys are right. It does fly by.
Yeah.
Here we are a year later.
I love it though.
Dude, ours are 4 and almost 2. And
how?
It is crazy. I think the last time we saw you guys was in Pennsylvania, right? And Leah, like our oldest, was 2, and we didn't have a second. So yeah, it's crazy how fast that goes.
Oh my word. So wild.
It's wild. Has he gotten to the point, I was just talking about this with somebody else the other day. I feel like that whole first year is like your baby's just so dependent on mom. And there's like you're like, the dad is just like, hey, when's this going to kick in for me? Like, when's this going to be fun? Has that happened yet? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I think the joy that I have is that he only says dada.
Yeah. Oh, that's a win.
So I think 99% of the time he's going to mom or waiting for mom to come home or excited to see mom. But I just have that little bit of, he says dada and I'll say mama, and he just shakes his head. So he definitely mama's boy. He only knows how to say dada. So I'll take it.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, what was it like having him on tour? Was that how many weeks was that? What was that like having a baby on tour with you guys?
I mean, it's just crazy because you're living on a bus. So honestly, for me, Mait was really the hero of this tour, because Mait would put him to bed and the bus early. And then before I even got on stage every night to lead worship, it was like, you're doing bedtime by yourself every night. And
I didn't see the actual show once.
I know.
I didn't actually think about the bus aspect of it. Like you guys just have like some dark room back there with a big sound machine. Is that how it's working?
Oh yeah. I mean, we got
it's jerry rigged pack and play up against the wall.
But sleep is minimal, because it's a moving bus, and we had to do some border crossings like into Canada and back.
Yeah.
And that's like, getting up at 3 a.m., unloading the bus, getting out into this like cold room where they're like questioning you, and then you get back on the bus, try to get the baby back to sleep. Yeah. It's just a whole thing. But I mean, it was fun.
That's cool. I know obviously being parents is still like newer, but as you're kind of like thinking through that, like, hey, this is our principles as a family. Like, obviously for you, you guys, it's pretty evident. You're going to take your son and future kids like with you along for the journey.
Yeah.
What is that like? I guess what are the things, or maybe what are some other principles you guys have in that? Like, hey, he's going to be with us. He's going to be on this process with us, even though it's going to probably be a little bit difficult at times. Like, what have you guys learned along the way of that?
Yeah. I mean, we feel, even though we're talking about, yeah, there are hard parts of it, but I feel so much God's grace on our family to do this as like a family unit. So even with Bodie, like he travels so great, and just feel like we can have him out late at a church service and like he's just happy as a clam, and we just feel like so blessed and God's grace on it when we decide to say yes and like go as a family. It just feels like really special. So
yeah, I think that's like for the question, I think that's like what we're trying to figure out as we're a year in is what are those kind of non-negotiables or principles. And obviously like we're even just aware that not everyone even has the option to go as a family. There's people who just go out on their own and their family's back home. So to even be able to like do this first year of traveling with him, while it's hard, I think it's honestly, someone put it, it's like harder on us. He's chilling. Like he has no idea what's happening, and he's just getting handed around to a bunch of different people, which he loves, so he doesn't know whether we're at home or in an arena. But that just idea that how are we all getting to somehow do this where we're seeing a new city and traveling on a bus, yet we're all together. So it makes it all, worth it, and it makes it all doable, I think. Right. So I even know like earlier stages of touring, even when we were just like newly married, I was like, man, this is tough because I'm just at home. Yeah. And it feels like you're experiencing all these like really amazing experiences, but we're doing this separately.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool to do that together as a couple, but then share those memories with Bodie and be able to be like, here's a photo of you in Toronto at 3 a.m. crossing the border, when he's older and stuff like that.
You'll never remember this, but yeah, that's cool. Right. It's cool that you mentioned that too. I imagine for a lot of people out there, that's probably either like the conception is that, oh, if you're, touring like you are, a part of like a worship team or traveling ministry, things like that you are doing this probably like without your family, like you're gone a lot. Or like the other instance of, it's just like, it's something that's like, oh, it's like you're living your own life and we're having our life back here. But you guys are actively kind of pushing against that, I guess, in a way of like, hey, we're going to do this together, and understanding there's probably going to be some seasons of like, I feel like I've been there too, of like, like Madeline, or like for you, Tiffany, is like going to be out and doing stuff and like doing what you're called to do, and you'll be back a little bit. And then there's going to be times of changing there too. That's cool. It's cool to see how you guys are managing that. How long have you been, actually curious of this, how long have you guys both been there at Elevation Church?
Yeah, honestly, I'm like 7 years, and I think you're kind of the same too, just about the same time.
I think you're 7.5. I'm
7.5 years. It's so crazy to even say that, because my whole life feels like I'm this like 16-year-old still that's just like somehow becoming an adult, married with a baby, owns a house, like had a full-time job for like this long. It just feels like, how did we get here?
Flies by.
But yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, you get to that point where you have conversations. Like I was in that the other day, or somebody was saying ages, and we all said our age. And I was like, I'm the oldest person in this conversation. Like, wow, how did I get to this point where you're probably in the same boat of like, oh, I'm the oldest person leading right now.
Even just like time on the staff, where it's like you get in a conversation, you're like, how long y'all been here? And people are like, oh, like a year, 2 years. And then all of a sudden, I've always felt like newer, or like Tiffany was saying, just like fresher. I'm like, oh wait, now I'm like the quote unquote old head who's like, oh, you've been around for 7 years. I'm like, dang, how did I get here?
It is wild. Did you guys both, Tiffany, I know a little bit about your story, and we can get into this too at some point. Did you guys both do like step into the internship program at the same time, or Mate, was it different for you?
Yeah, Tiff did the internship and then did like an apprenticeship after, and then got hired. And I did the same apprenticeship that she did.
6-month long program.
6 months long. So she finished hers, got hired, and then I started mine. So I came in like 6 months after her doing the.
And I was like, who's the new guy? Who's the new apprentice? He's so cute.
There you go. That's so cool. It's cool how you guys met there. I feel like what I hear a lot, like especially doing this podcast for a little bit now, is hearing like those stories of like, 10 years ago, but like looking back, like you always say, oh, there was a huge like step of faith that I took or a risk or whatever is to get to where I'm at today. And for you guys, I'm sure that was a little bit it. Tiffany, I know you kind of moving from like where you were probably at back here in Florida up there to North Carolina, not necessarily knowing what was next. What was that season like for maybe you guys, I guess, a little bit individually, like of just saying, hey, we're going to see where this leads?
Yeah. I mean, I could just briefly touch on my story. When I came to Elevation through an internship, it wasn't necessarily like a strategic plan for me to like end up at this church. It totally was like, felt coincidental. I needed an internship to graduate with my major. Shout out SEU. So I came to Elevation through an internship just to check it off the box. Like, okay, this is the next step before I graduate. But God is so sovereign how he works, because I just never would have imagined like he would have had me plant my life like in this church and in this city of Charlotte. So for me, it really wasn't this like plan necessarily. It was like just the next little step to take. And it's just cool to look back in hindsight and see how much God's hand was it like over every little detail, and how I've seen him just like place me here in his kindness. So that's for me.
That's awesome. It was cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar situation, except for me, I was like, had this ideal of what it looked like to be in ministry and be a filmmaker. So I kind of came in with that dream and passion of like becoming something, which was, probably about 3 years in, I had this moment where I kind of got to achieve what I was coming to do. Although when I achieved it, it didn't feel like what I thought I was going to feel like. And God just took me on this journey of like kind of revealing to me why he actually brought me here. While I had like my plans, he was kind of revealing what he was showing me. So I would say like the past 4 years have just been this journey of like unlearning a lot of that I kind of put onto myself, and just kind of listening and tuning into what it is that he's teaching me and he's leading me towards, which has been way more beautiful and a much better experience than like striving to become this thing.
That's awesome. I mean, I'd love to get into that too. I know like Mate, you've been doing a lot of cool stuff with the athletic brand too, with ONUS, right?
Shout out ONUS.
Yeah, dude, I have a couple pieces now and I love it, man.
I know. I see the name come through. I appreciate the support.
Yeah, I'm pumped by it, dude. I always love like a good hat, especially when you're losing your hair at the rate I am, dude. I'll take a good hat any day, man.
I
was going to mention though, before that, you said shout out Southeastern. I was at campus the other day, and you're still like on the plastered. Have you been there in a while?
So I've heard. I'd been a few years back.
Yeah, they're not removing that.
No,
proud.
It's too good. It makes me laugh. And honestly, last time I was there, my mom made me pose in front of that poster, and I was like, "Mom, this is so embarrassing." But
is it from when you were like,
that's great?
There?
Yeah, when I was there.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's for sure like 8-9 years ish old,
Dang.
right?
Long.
Somewhere around
It's
there.
got that sun fade on it.
It 100% does. I was there
They need to update that.
I was there with a friend of ours, and he's been on the show too, but Michael Delgado, and I was like, dude, they're not getting rid of this. They're like, Tiffany went on to do great things, and like, yeah, we're keeping this as long. The sun's gonna have to get rid of this one at some point, and then they get a new one.
So funny,
dude. So talk to us a little bit about that, Mate. Like, if anybody's following you or seen your work, like outside of what you're doing with ONUS and all that, you are like a phenomenal videographer and all those kind of things. Like, I can imagine the like ideal of we're there, cool. Of like coming in and like having these dreams. What has God kind of been speaking to you maybe in the last couple of years as you've been serving there at the church and being a part of what God's doing there?
Yeah, that's great. I would say my dream was to be a like high level, well-known filmmaker. I didn't really like say that, but that's what I like was like striving towards.
Sure.
And yeah, like I said, like about 3 years in, I had this like piece that I got to put my hands on, fully direct, had budget, had all these things, and got to travel and shoot this crazy film. And the week it was supposed to air, we had like this huge kind of like restructure, revision for our church happen. That was like pretty pivotal for our like church moving forward. And the video ended up getting cut. And I kind of had this moment of like, God, like this was my moment. This was my moment to shine. Like people were going to see my work and finally recognize and respect what I can do, this and that. And you like took that from me, what it felt like. And I was very confused. And within that moment, like I had a meeting with my team where we were kind of just mourning that loss of this project. I just felt like the Lord was speaking to me. He was like, that one was for me. That one was to show you that although you can create and I'll do what I will with the stuff you create. Like I need you to understand that you're not doing it for you to become something. You're doing it as an act of worship to me.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And that was extremely pivotal for now. I would say any sort of success or any sort of like project I've worked on since then is because I've now approached it not in the way of who can I work with or what can I gain from this. It's more of just like, Lord, I want to make stuff that pleases you and that inspires your people to want to draw near and closer to you. And so, that's what the past like 4 or 5 years has been. And he's just brought me into rooms I don't feel like I deserve to be in, gave me projects that I don't know why I have gotten. And, I've just tried to remain in that place of like, this is for you, God. And if you want to show it to people or release it out to the world, have your way with it. But on the front end, I'm just going to be obedient and listen to where it is that you're going to kind of push me towards.
That's awesome. And that's so encouraging, I think, for probably a lot of people that will be listening to this, because like I've been in seasons like that before too, where you kind of maybe even like to a degree, or at least I have in the past, like you convince yourself that you're doing it for all the right reasons,
Right.
and you can get into the motions of like, oh, but God, I'm doing this for you. But in reality, it's like, oh, I kind of want to make a bit of a name for myself. And I want people to tag me on Instagram or social media and like shout me out and do all these things.
Right.
And I've had similars where I'm sure people listening, moments where it's like the same idea of like, oh, I had this big thing, and then it gets kind of removed from you, and you get to a place where you're like, oh, okay, what am I doing this for? I think everybody needs a good moment like that in their life. And hopefully it doesn't have to be this like dramatic fall or anything like that, right? That's probably a whole different conversation. But just a awakening to, man, the real reason why I'm doing anything, whether it's full-time ministry, videography, your career, is that there's an aspect of worship, right, in all of that, right? Outside of other shit, like what you do full-time, Tiffany, of like actual like leading worship like that, there's how do we find worship in what we do day in and day out,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's, I would say, even on the back half of that question, like it's a new season stepping into like clothing design and kind of this different branch of, like in the church, there's worship, there's sermon, there's video, and it kind of feels like those are like the boxes of like Christianity, creativity, and like you're saying, like even worship. And I think stepping into this new thing that's like not really tied to the church and not really tied to traditional Christianity of what it is. But our bodies and our health and our wellness being, I would argue, like one of the most important parts of our walk, taking care of ourselves and becoming a better version of ourselves to present, and being able to like run and play with Bodie when he's older and be a present dad. Like all that dwells down to essentially like, how am I taking care of my body and how am I stewarding that, So I would say like even now jumping into ONUS and creating, active wear and functional wear for, just the everyday person. It's a new experience and a new way to discover God and like creating with him and saying like, Lord, like, what are the things that you're wanting me to do to inspire people on this realm? Inspire people to get in the gym, inspire people to take a step to wellness, for their physical bodies. And that's been its whole new journey of ups and downs of like, oh, I am doing this and it doesn't feel like it's related to church. But then I am reminded of like why he like kind of placed this idea in my heart of like trying to put the responsibility on the person of like, this is your one life, your health, your wellness that you're responsible for. And so, yeah, I mean, it's its own new journey. And now I'm like kind of reliving a lot of these, what am I doing it for? How do I catch myself, making sure it's the right thing and it's staying on track when it's like not correlated with the church, which was, I think, maybe easier to kind of point it back towards something all the time,
Yeah, for sure. The thing that you said that hit home with me was like wanting to like make sure you can play with your kids when you're like older, dude. We did this. There was like this Nike run here in town a couple days ago. And well, when this episode comes out, it'll be a couple weeks ago. But we got there and my oldest was like, my dad's going to win this race. Like saying that out loud. And I was like, oh no, like dad's going to do his best, man. Dad's going to do like his absolute best.
So cute.
But it did push me for sure. But yeah, like that's, and the other thing too, that I wanted to mention is like, I love, what I feel is like, maybe from my perspective too, what you could do is like another act of worship is that you do what you do excellently. Like there's and not to get into the weeds of it, but there's the reality. Obviously there's like quick clothes that you can make and like you can put a logo on a t-shirt and send that out. But you can also like take time and make something great and excellent. I was just having this conversation with the guys from Bevy, who you may have heard of or not, but they're similar thing where it's like you're creating something that's not like, you're putting your time and effort and excellence to it. And I love that. I think that's an act of worship often is when we do what God's given us with excellence, as opposed to just like, oh, cool, I'm going to put something out there quickly and just see how it goes. And your 100%. Stuff's excellent. So that's my 2 cents. Tiffany, I'd love to hear too, maybe kind of talking a little bit about what you've kind of gone through in the last few years. What has that ride been like with, obviously going through the internship and the apprenticeship and then kind of stepping into elevation worship and touring? I know that's such a big question, but like, what has that whole experience been like for you?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, looking over the past 7 years, it's so surreal to get to be doing the things that God's allowed me to do. I mean, I think there was like dreams in my heart that I don't think I ever said out loud that now I'm just getting to live, and prayers I prayed that I feel like I'm like living in prayers, and it's so beyond anything I could have ever imagined for my life. And at the same time, it is the most like stripping type of season to receive so many answered prayers and to receive like, and to live in so many dreams. Like it's both. It makes me so grateful. And it also makes me realize, oh man, Jesus still has to be the dream and the goal and all of it, or else it's super empty. And I could say that, being someone that has gotten to do so many crazy things of, stand on stages in front of a lot of people and go to events that I always wanted to go to and go to award shows and all that kind of stuff. And as grateful as I am, like, it's just this journey of like, oh man, like at the end of the day, those things come up so short. They come up so empty if it's not just like rooted in Jesus. And so my journey has been so many ups and downs of like, God, remove things in my heart that don't belong, like purify all my motives so that when you're giving me influence or platform, like I want it to be pleasing to the Lord. I want every little aspect of this journey to be pleasing to the Lord. And I just always go back to like, man, I just never want to graduate from being, the 16-year-old girl that just really loved God's presence. And that's what it was always about for me. And so
That's
God is
awesome.
very kind, and I feel his grace so much. Like, I feel his grace and correction a lot. Like, he just constantly is keeping me like on the path. Because if I'm up to my own devices, I'm all over the place, and I constantly need to be repenting and hitting my knees. But God's kindness and grace is so good to keep me where he wants me to be. And it's been the craziest journey to experience with the Lord. And now even with family and with Mate, like, it's been such a blessing to get to navigate these seasons together. Like, a lot of new territory and a lot of things we just process all the time, about what do you do with opportunity? What do you do with blessing? What do you do with all this stuff? Like, it's been really, really sweet to navigate with Mate. So
That's awesome.
Mate and the Lord.
Yeah, it's cool to see. I feel like that mindset too leads to like longevity, like you get to a place where you've achieved the thing or gone to it, and you start to, it could be a natural kind of reaction to feel like, oh, I figured it out on my own. It's up to a point, and forgetting that, oh, it was all Jesus, it was all God who brought me to this point.
Yes.
And that's cool to see too. I would love to get into, like, you kind of mentioned that at the end, like navigating like a healthy marriage through the busyness that you guys live in. What are some things that you guys have done as a married couple to continue to be like, okay, we're going to keep our marriage healthy, even though we have 100 different things and a small human to take care of,
Yeah.
It's a good question. And we should at least start by saying we're 4 years into marriage. So by no means have we had this figured out. I would even say we've probably learned more what not to do. Like, even at this stage of having seasons where I had a super heavy travel schedule and I was saying yes to everything, and then realizing the toll that it took on us of like, oh man, like our free time now we have together, we're just tired. We're not giving each other our best. And so all that to say, like, I think the last season was really about like learning what not to do and what our boundaries are, and setting the limits of like, how much do we want to travel? Is our yes, and are we doing too much? And so I would at least start by saying that we don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
I almost think I don't have much advice to give on that front due to where we've been. And it's not that it's all been bad, but it's been, like Tiff is saying, like a lot of learning. Just because when we started, we weren't really planning for any of this to happen in certain ways. As we entered like last year, having Bodie, and not really, I don't think anyone knows how to, like, off the bat, like, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it with Bodie involved, And so I will say, like, the grace of the Lord has been the thing that's holding us.
Yes.
But in that, there has been, I feel like, his teaching of like prioritizing our marriage. And are we doing that? And are we focusing on that? Or are we just taking everything that comes our way and just trying to somehow balance it all and say, well, we'll figure out the date nights or the one-on-one times like later, or, well, we're technically traveling, so this is like supposed to be, this fun thing, but at the same time, it's like we're working and then we come home and we're tired. So I think we're entering into this year with like a lot healthier mindset on just even your question of like, how are you guys doing that? It's like now we're more in the stage of like, hey, we realize after, a year or two of not prioritizing what that does and how it just casually starts to like slip away. And then you realize like, oh wow, a whole year just went by and we've only done a couple of date nights and prioritized our marriage very little. So
yeah. And I will say, even practically, as we've been learning like how to balance and navigate busy schedules and travel and all that, I think our Fridays have become like such a Sabbath for us, where we really protect our weekends. We have off
Friday,
work.
Saturday.
Yeah, we have off Fridays. So Friday is becoming such like a sacred day where it's like we really don't say yes to a lot. And if we're home, like we're home. We're together
Chilling.
as a family. We're just doing things together. And that's been really refreshing for us. With travel, like a lot of things are over the weekends. And so I think we've just like learned like when we're home and we have a Friday off, like this is our Sabbath. Like we are connecting as a family. We're doing our best to not, spend the whole day on our phones and disconnecting
Yeah.
that way, but really connect with each other. So still a lot of learning to do, but I would say practically that has been a gift.
Yeah. But it's like the intentionality, right? It's learning and being able to not like, I think mate, like you hinted at too. It's like not pushing it off till later to figure it out. It's like, okay, this didn't work out. We need to learn from it and move on. Like just constantly like taking notes. I feel like the analogy that popped into my head, I tried just the other night to my first ever time like jogging with both of the boys or like going for a run in a double stroller.
Whoa.
It was the worst thing I've done in like a long time. Because our boys are at this point now where it was like they just, if they're not doing something like for long enough, they're just going to start smacking each other. And so that was what happened. And it's like, I say all this to say it was like me like learning how to run and like stop them and give them water and all this stuff. And I realized like, okay, this just isn't a good idea. Next time it's one of them, not both of them. And like taking those steps of not like saying like, okay, this is how I could be better, learning from the next time. Madeline and I, we're 9 years of marriage next week, which is crazy. Yeah, 10 years next year.
Wow.
So it's exciting. And then, you navigate, you just figure stuff out along the way. Like our son's probably going to have his tonsils removed like on our anniversary. So that's like not a lot of fun happening there, but that's part of like growing and learning. Like, hey, the intentionality is the week before we need to have like a date. Like this matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even in busy seasons, it's like, even when we're like traveling for work or whatever, that's not necessarily equaling a date. It's like, how can we take some time to like make that an intentional moment together? And that's cool, man. I'm sure that there's people, even for being 4 years in, I'm sure that you guys are like, there's some probably young married couples in your guys' church that are looking up to you or like in your kind of same sphere, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think it is that like sharing what you've experienced and knowing that at the end of the day, regardless of what comes up, like there's only two people on your like team for marriage of like, if I'm like, oh yeah, well, we can get to it. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's cool. It's like, then no one is fighting for this moment. So it's like, I feel like that responsibility of what I'm learning is like, oh, if I don't prioritize this, then there's not like a backup quarterback who's going to come in and like do it, or a coach who's going to be like, hey, you guys remember you said you're supposed to. And so like, I think
it's on us. ONUS. Haha.
Got
Sorry.
it. There it is.
She's got mom jokes now.
Perfect.
But just like championing on your own marriage, I think it's kind of a funny thought, but it is like such a reality of what we're doing.
Yeah. And because I feel like Bodie is, priority because he like, if he's hungry, like he needs to be fed. Whereas like Mate and I, it's like, oh, if we need a date, well, if something else comes by, like we know we're fine. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. But then that's really easy to like let just kind of fall through the cracks because it's not this like urgent thing.
Yeah.
And I also think about, your relationship with God, like the thought of like, he's everywhere. So like he's always with us, but then the times you set aside to like be with him are so much different than like, oh, we live together. We live in the same house. We're always having dinner together. But like the time we set aside for each other is so much more intimate and special. So I feel like that applies to
you can go
both things.
Years and months go by. You're like, oh man, I need to prioritize my relationship with the Lord. And but we're good. Like he knows I'm good, but it's like, I don't think you guys are actually Like, why?
Well, you miss the treasure of it. It's not even shame. It's like you miss the treasure
true.
of
Like the fullness
him.
of what it is,
Yes.
or what you could be experiencing.
Yeah.
100%. It's so good. I actually, that sparked a question for me. I was just thinking about this. I'm always curious, you know, my wife being in full-time ministry too, and both of you, like your whole family being like very like a part of the church and a very fast-paced church of what you guys do. Like, how do you, I feel like it could be easy to fall into that rhythm of, oh, my time with God is when I'm leading worship on Sundays and when I'm at work and things like that. How do you like fight against that kind of mindset of like, oh, like trying to, I guess the better way I'm trying to say this, maybe this makes sense, is like, it's like God isn't my career. Like he's a part of my career, but it's like there's a relationship that I have with him, and I have to make sure that I'm also like spending time with him outside of just what I naturally do at work. Does that make sense?
Right. It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And for me, it's very easy because I've had seasons where my time with him was what I was doing for him. And I realized how quickly, like, I just got burnt out and quickly was like running on E, because you really can't give from a place like you don't have anything to give from. And
100%,
so
yeah.
I feel like for me, it's like non-negotiable. Like I've got to dig the well, and not even for the sake of pouring out. Like I've got to just like know the Lord. I feel like that's probably one of my biggest passions that I walk with every day, of like, you can do a lot of things in the name of God without actually knowing him. And I feel like I burn to just like know him deeper and deeper. And the longer I'm in ministry, the more I've been a follower of Jesus, the more hunger I have to truly know him. And so for me, it's become almost easier and easier the busier we get, just because I know how empty it is when I have not prioritized him. And like, it's just not worth it. Like, it's not worth it in my own strength. Like, because my own strength is so limited that it's like I could go. It's like I can't, don't even want to go a day without him, because I am so limited in my own strength. And so I had a season where I was leading worship, no exaggeration, at least 4 times a week. We had 2 services on Sunday. We had one on Sunday night. We had one on Wednesday night. And then there was, maybe another church event or travel event that was also happening. So it was like minimum times a week, 4 times a week of me being on a stage pouring out. And I realized how quickly, if I was not filling up and if I was not like encountering the Lord for myself, then I was just like good for nothing. And so for me, it's just like the most important thing that cannot be over exaggerated, of like, you've got to prioritize time with Jesus. And I think we live in a culture where it's really easy to be like, there's grace and it's okay. And God understands your heart. Like he knows your intentions. You wanted to be with him. And all of that is true. But I feel like I'm kind of in a place in my life where I'm like, no. Like actually grow up into maturity in Christ and know what it means to set time aside for him. And everything you do will flow from that place. And it will be the most treasured, sacred time. Yeah, that you could never want to replace with anything else. So
for sure. And when you've been there too, like that's what I love about what you're saying. It's like when you've been there too, you know that feeling. And so you know how good it is to be there. You know what I mean? It's like if you've ever like gotten to a place where you've been working out a ton and like lifted all that kind of stuff, and then you let go of that for 6 months, you're like, oh man, I miss how I felt, how like energetic and all that. I feel like it's a very similar feeling of like, I know this is how good I can feel and that's what I hope for everybody that would listen to this show too, is to be motivated to spend some time with God this week,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool.
I even think about in what you were describing earlier, like the analogies and like referring to this podcast, where it's like, if me and Tiff, if this was like the extent of our relationship, which is more of a, this is more of a task or opportunity to like talk, and display it, but it's not a day-to-day in and out. And we just talked about how, good we were, and we could say the right things and figure it out, and it sounds good, but then we didn't have like a conversation here and there in between. We just spent time, like it just wouldn't feel as good. But now like we can talk from a place of overflow And I think that's like even the same with the Lord, is like what you were saying is, man, and you just know there's a once you taste it and you see it and you experience it, there's a clear difference of how you move, how you function, how you think, what creates stress in your life, what creates anxiety, and how those things just go down. And like it's literally a 1-for-1 exchange almost. That it's almost how, in a way, where I'm like, man, if you experience, I don't know how you can even say that God's not real, because it's like an intimate moment with him can fully reset your mind and your heart. And Tiff does that so well. Like I get to see her, and what a lot of people don't, where it's like she's waking up every morning with her coffee and sitting on the couch and reading, and even though Bodhi's crawling around crying, throwing something, she'll stay locked in. And I'm just like, I have too bad ADHD. I'm like, I don't know how she's doing this, but she continues to seek those intimate moments, regardless of if it's this perfect, quiet morning or it's chaotic morning and we're almost running late, but she just will crack open the Bible for a few minutes. And that inspires me on so many levels. It's just like the way she prioritizes her intimacy with the Lord. It's obvious when you see her lead worship, because it's like, and I get to see that like firsthand.
That's awesome, man. I can't imagine like staying locked in like that. Our boys are like, I could be trying to have my moment, and our boys also wake up at like 5:30, 6 a.m. So my moments have to be quicker. It's a problem. But they're like 5:30 or 6 a.m. They're like, I introduced them to like Who Let the Dogs Out by the Baha Men, if you remember that old song. And so they'll get up and be like, hear worship music, and they're like, Dad, play Who Let the Dogs Out. Or they know how to talk to Alexa too. But that's a whole nother issue. But it is cool to hear. I just love that you mentioned this. There's a friend of mine who's been on this show before, and was talking about how just like the soul act alone of like meditation changed his life. And it was cool. It was an interesting conversation, because the way that he was describing like the way meditation changed his life, I was like, man, this feels like the way that like my relationship with God and like prayer ultimately changed my life. But I know that there's such a big difference in what I have than what maybe he's experienced, And there's that like understanding of like the taking the time aside to like reflect. It may be good, but like when you meet that with like the presence of God, like how much that can change your life. Like there's so many people out there looking for peace and for hope and for answers and all of that kind of stuff. And there's some great methods out there for giving you some like quick relief for peace. But like the thing that we got to talk about on that one episode was just like what I feel like is actually the everlasting answer, Yes. And so it's cool to hear like your guys' perspective on that too. I do have one more question before I know we're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, I actually had Pastor Devontae. He's a good friend of mine now. I don't know if you guys remember him from South, or Tiffany, if you remember from Southeastern, but he's now the youth pastor out at Lakewood at Joel Osteen's church, which is a massive church doing incredible, awesome things. I'm always curious, I'm a huge fan of, and not just saying that, like a huge fan of your guys' church, of Elevation. I like can't imagine being at the like level of that type of ministry as well, because there's so many like moving pieces, there's so much like impact that's being had, but also there's probably a level to that of, the more well-known you are, there's also the more like haters or more things being said out there or whatever. I'm just curious, and we don't have to like, this is, just out of your guys' perspective, how do you kind of block out some of the like negative noise of things like that? Because like you obviously know what you're doing is making a difference, and you guys are there, right? There's so many people who are on the outside wanting to say negative things about what's going on the inside. But how do you navigate that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, I think with anything, if anyone does anything of significance, you're going to get a lot of praise you don't deserve, and probably a lot of like, what do you call it? Backlash that maybe also, you don't know me. Like, I've never met you a day in my life. But I think something funny we always say here is like, I probably don't think that God sent like his prophets to like the comments of YouTube channels of like people go in about
Right.
whatever on some video
Yeah.
as if it was like if God needs to get to us, like to tell us something, like he's going to send someone in the YouTube comments. It's like, no, I mean, you get your refinement in community that you live in and marriage and all those things. And so I think with backlash or whatever, like you take everything with a grain of salt. And I think there are seasons where I would kind of harp on, like, if one person said something negative, I'm like, oh man, I can't believe, I feel the need to defend myself. But now I'm kind of at a place where I'm like, the truth doesn't need to be defended. Like if there's something someone I don't know has to say about us, then it's like, let it be. And God will, protect what he needs to. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, and it's that just idea of like, because I mean, I've been in my own space of that. We have a massive staff, so it's like, there's people I never even talk to, and that we're all trying to, I think at the end of the day, hopefully, we're all trying to build His church, God's church. And we're doing it, yes, on this massive scale, and at some point going into uncharted places that no one has like the blueprint of how this was done before, even to like our pastor's level. So like, there's so much in my mind, there's so much grace and so much like just awareness and understanding of like, oh yeah, none of us are Jesus. None of us are perfect. That's no excuse. But at the end of the day, like, there's been amazing people who've come through and some people who have done some non-amazing things that it's a part of life. So I think it's just like taking that in every circumstance with the approach of like, that's a person with a story, with hurt, with success, with family stuff, with personal stuff. And we just, unless you're sitting across the table from that person on a regular and you're in that person's life, I think that's just like the overarching of like, man, I can't judge another person, even from what I see them post on Instagram or how they post it or what they post on YouTube. It's just like, it's a whole person. And if you can see them in the eyes of, that's also a child that God sees as a child, it's just like, it starts to fully reset everything. And that's not to negate the fact that there's frustrations and things that, you agree with and don't agree with. But when you get out of yourself and get out of like kind of your own personal preferences and how you would want something done, it's just like, oh man, we're all just going after the Lord and doing our absolute best to build His church and build His kingdom. And it's crazy that people are watching online and tapping in from even other countries, So it's wild.
It's cool.
Take that how it is.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially when it's like your own people, you know what I mean? In a sense of like, it's people believing the same thing. I don't, this podcast definitely is not going to solve everything, but like, it's interesting to me, like too, I just feel like there's the reality of, we maybe sometimes forget that, these are just other people doing the best they can to like glorify God and to make Him known. And you're probably wanting to do the exact same thing.
Exactly.
And this is just, God has put His hand, and as God has put His hand on many of things across our nation and across the world right now. And He's just so happened to also put His hand on like Elevation Church and Elevation Worship. And then sometimes I think it's just like, we build this own little lore in our head about people that like I personally, for the longest time, like especially when we were living in Pennsylvania, every morning I'd go to the gym and I'd listen to, I guess it was just Sunday mornings, but I'd listen to like your guys's like Pastor Stephen's like message on that Monday or whatever. And I really like respected him too, because I'm like, man, this is like a guy leading at such a high level. And my feeling was always like, he just solely focuses on his church. He's like, loves his church. He's focusing a lot on like his church and like the people in his area. And I just have a lot of respect for that. Obviously, a lot of respect for you guys too, because you are doing some incredible things and even taking some time to be on this podcast today. I'm really appreciative of both of you.
Thank you, Alec.
course.
What a joy to get to talk to you.
Yeah, of course. I always do this before we leave. I always do this with one more minute left. Maybe what's one just kind of encouraging thing you could leave with somebody as we're heading out here?
I would say do your absolute best at figuring out what you have to do to become the most present person in the room. Being present, I think, is the answer to most things, most of your anxiety, fear, desire, all this stuff is just, how can I be present? That's one thing in the room, but how can I be present with the Lord and just have as much as I can, have this very clear feed to heaven of, Lord, what is it that you're speaking? And what is it that you're wanting to do today in this moment, in this place? For some reason, you placed me here across from this person, or whatever it is. And how can I just see you and be present in this moment? I think that's like one of the keys to life.
I love that. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys both so much for being on the show again.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alec.